Welcome back to this month's Real Estate Roundtable, your all-in-one comprehensive view of what's happening across the real estate industry, straight from some of the industry's earliest technology adopters, foremost experts, and sorry, bear with us as I get feedback across all my channels. This month's Real Estate Roundtable, foremost experts in technology, marketing, capital, construction, cybersecurity, institutional real estate. As always, it is a three-part show, introductions and what's new for each of our roundtable hosts in their respective sectors, followed by the biggest trends moving the industry, paradigm shifts, as a good friend Saul likes to always talk about, and what does it mean for your real estate businesses and what you can do for the next 30 days. I'm Andreas Senie, founder of CRECollaborative, brokerage owner, and technology growth strategist for both the nonprofit and for-profit sectors. Joining me this month is none other than Saul Klein, father of technology and internet adoption in the real estate industry and generally recognized as a technology pioneer. Saul, welcome. Did I do you enough justice on your intro?
I think you did more than enough.
Pardon my delay there. I had a bit of feedback. Saul was also the creator of one of the first online real estate communities, Real Talk, first developed by the National Association of Realtors in 1995. And for those that don't know, Realtor.com, originally the RIN network, was part of the team that pioneered what is known as today as internet listings, really. Also joining us, Rebekah Carlson, President and CEO of Carlson Integrated, past president, NICAR Association. Rebekah is the foremost expert I turn to for all things marketing, in addition to running her brokerage there in Chicago. Rebekah, anything to add on your intro this month?
Well, it's great to be here, Andreas, and I would like to add that NICAR has been really busy and really active, and by way of wonderful associations of knowing other people, we actually had as a guest at our big luncheon today, Maria.
So you're going to steal my introduction of Maria. No, it's okay. Let's go ahead and do it. So Maria Kowalik, responsible for business development and deal originations at Inland Green Capital LLC, with over 25 years experience in commercial real estate and property management. Welcome back to your second show, Maria.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I'm glad to be among all these illustrious people here. This is so exciting.
It's certainly my favorite segment of the month is talking with you guys and really getting down deep into the industry from this 360 perspective. Also joining us, freshly back from the UK, Professor Darren Hayes, CEO of Code Detectives and one of the top 10 forensic computer scientists in the U.S., frequently on television, including Bloomberg, MSNBC, and others. Darren, welcome. Did I miss anything on your intro as we shift to this new paradigm? Not quite a paradigm, Saul, but we'll get to
that. No, that's a great intro. Thank you so much. Great to be here with everyone again.
For the short term, as I know you're flying out again, we're going to start to push you towards the international sector for this conversation, given your travel. And lastly, but certainly not least, Chris Abel, membership director at the Connecticut Associated Builders and Contractors, responsible for development in all things construction, or at least the pulse of construction in the Northeast from my neck of the woods. Chris, nice to see you. Welcome back. Anything I missed there?
No, not at all. I'm just going back. Maria said this illustrious group, and I was like, I must be on the wrong.
Wrong Zoom.
Like, I'm going to stick around for at least an hour, so I can't just go right
now. No. Truly a great show, and welcome everyone. The show is growing, and I could not be more excited to be a part of it. I hope you feel the same. I know you feel the same. You keep showing up and putting up with me every hour for 1 hour a month. So, as the second part of the show after introductions, we'll go around the room and talk about what moved us this month in our industry, in our exact sector. And I'm going to kick it off with some macro trends just to keep the conversation going. As far as outlook for real estate, JLL, others, Colliers have all put out reports. Tech companies are signaling that return to offices. Office occupancy has been growing since January. Multifamily thriving, industrial thriving. Although there was a lot of changes with the social distancing, all of that is, as per one of our very early shows, all of that is now prescribed. We have a book on how to handle things. So business, for all intensive purposes, in 2022 is returning to normal. Even the hotel sector is reporting that thanks to the extra money in the savings account of consumers and the conference events coming up this year, they're seeing a full recovery. So my biggest question on what moves the industry this month is how many of the pandemic changes in your own sectors, such as Zoom, are staying or going. And I'm going to go from left to right. I assume, unlike Zoom, we're in the same scheme. Saul, you're up first. How's your car wash? It's famous. I'm getting it there.
Hey, the car wash is doing great. It's always in January, February, when we get a little bit of rain, it slows down. But I can always tell how well it does by the checks that I get every month. So it's doing much better. And here in San Diego, the median price of a home is about 830,000. Average market time is about 19 days. Something that struck me, you talked about COVID. I've actually gotten out of the house a little bit over the last week. And one of the things I noticed is the lines going into the shopping center areas, the traffic. And it just really surprised me. I had to go down and I got a new iPhone. And I thought that the shopping center would be, there wouldn't be anybody there. It was in the middle of the week and it was packed, like where you have to sit through a light twice before you get across. So I was really surprised. And then driving home, noticed long lines all coming off of one ramp, going on to another. So I think people are excited to be out and about, I guess, because again, I didn't expect to see that much activity. The market here, 19 days, that's pretty good. That's a lot slower than it had been. So interest rates are on the rise, but that doesn't spell necessarily what people think it does. I remember in 1978, 1979, 1980, as interest rates rose to like 18%, people didn't stop buying. And we had not that many shortage of properties available. I remember taking somebody out and he didn't even go into the property, couldn't get into the property, and he stood outside the kitchen window and jumped up and looked in the window to kind of get a look, and then we wrote an offer on the property. So there's a shortage of property available. Man, we're 7 million nationwide, and and equity assets, real estate, great thing to own when there's inflation. What are you going to do? You're going to sell your real estate, take your cash and put it in the bank, and I don't know where you're going to put it to get that kind of return. So when you've got inflation, which we've got, interest rates on the rise, you might think that it would slow the market down. Eventually it will, but it hasn't yet.
Love to hear it from the West Coast, as I sit here on the East Coast, for those that don't know. And Rebekah, you sit right in the middle, so you're perfect in order. How are things going in the marketing world, brokerage world, out there in Chicago?
So things are really busy. So we're seeing a huge uptick in activity. I would like to say that the Chicago weather has started to improve. I'm not entirely sure that's true. It's actually pretty nasty out here weather-wise, but you're starting to see kind of the stationary elements, and we do have a seasonality to business here in Chicago. People kind of don't leave and do anything in January and February. And March and April, it really does traditionally pick up, and we're seeing that many more events, many more in-person opportunities, which of course were quiet for 2 years. So it's been most interesting for me to see the adaptation to that, because there is a process that people go through. The first time they're out, they're super chatty because they haven't really had an in-person thing. We all kind of get used to acclimating back to those situations. But there's an avid interest in networking, and yet also a protection of that home life balance. So we're seeing maybe lower attendance, but the folks who are at events are really excited to be there. And it's simply a matter of acclimating from nobody's ready quite to go, 0 to 60 miles an hour. Everybody kind of wants to go like 30, 45 miles an hour as they really ramp up. And we are definitely seeing increased conferences, events, increased, again, opportunities for people to get together. And the conversation right now is like it used to be. It's all ICSC Vegas.
But just because you mentioned it earlier, when Anna Maria spoke at your NICAR event earlier, did you guys continue to do those tags that said, "Hey, I'll shake your hand," or I will, I'm comfortable doing X, Y, Z, or is that gone? Because you'd mentioned that early in the show. Way
It-
gone.
Way gone.
Okay,
Yeah.
love it.
It
Well,
took us a long time. We were the 42nd state to remove masks.
okay.
So we are, I would say, in a sense, behind 41 states in this reentry phase.
And everybody's excited as they should be, right?
Yeah.
Business as usual, or I hope business as usual, which leads to me always Chris Abel with our global supply chain shortages still kind of out there, right? Chris, welcome. What's going on in the construction sector? I just saw Chris at his annual membership dinner for his association. What an amazing group of people. And I'm not going to tell the jokes they told there, but nice to see you.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, thank you for coming out. It was a good time. It was
No masks, like everyone.
no, not with our group. I'm not gonna lie. That's been that way for a while, to be honest with you. But to kind of piggyback off back of what you were saying, one thing I've definitely noticed with the events that I've been involved with, the show rates for the events are way higher. So the people who are signing up and the people who are coming out, the amount of name tags that are kind of left on the registration table at the end of the night is definitely a lot lower. And there's, it might be the swap ins. Hey, this person's not coming, so this person's coming in their place. But the show rates are higher. People are basically making their commitment, like, I'm going to this event. So it's been really, really nice. As far as what some of the stuff that I've seen, I've actually taken a few calls from some of the contractors I deal with. I deal predominantly on the commercial side, but over the past month and a half, I've gotten about 3 calls from different contractors that are starting to move towards the residential side of things because their commercial side is slow and they're trying to get into more of the luxury home market. And they understand that some of the projects and the project management and how they're going about things are very similar to a commercial build, and some of the mechanical side of things and electrical sides are, I'm not gonna lie, maybe one or two of them might be in for a little bit of a rude awakening, and there's going to be some growing pains. But it's interesting. It's interesting to see them shifting in that direction, and it's partially to the supply chain stuff is still there. The biggest thing going on in our industry, just like anywhere else, is licensed tradespeople. That has not changed. That has increased. They just can't find it. I have mechanical. There's not with a license. And then in here in Connecticut, we have such a ratio relief issue that their hands are tied in regards to getting the apprentices. Also, they just can't. They don't have enough licensed people to take on the apprentices. But other than that, I mean, all good. It's nice to see everybody out. It's nice to see everybody making moves. And then the other thing we're seeing a lot here in Connecticut is a lot of the cannabis facilities are starting to move forward now that legislation is through. So I'm seeing I'm fielding a lot of questions about those. And then a lot of, Andreas, you were talking about the hotels, some of the mixed use buildings that have been bought recently where they weren't really talking about implementing housing or implementing maybe a smaller version of the hotel that was originally in a couple of these places. Let's say there's a spot in Cromwell. They're starting to reconsider what they're going to build out because they're starting to see people kind of coming out of the woodwork and traveling and,
the need is there. The demand is back.
Yeah. Compete for that conference, those conferences that are going to come in the area.
Sure.
It's interesting. It's interesting. It's a fun time. And I like what's going on with the weather starting to turn. I just think it's going to be a good spring and summer, full of challenges, but it'll be great.
It's certainly exciting. And speaking of unspoken demand, or maybe more spoken demand now with the government getting on board, commitment to net zero emissions, Anna Maria, second show, CPACE, for all those that don't know, how to get green with your buildings and get some cheap capital while you're at it. Not a bad place to be. Anything changing also in Chicago, Illinois, excuse me, for our new listeners.
I would just echo what all my predecessors here said. One night my husband and I decided to go out for dinner, and my son has a small neighborhood Italian restaurant. And so we went and we had to wait. It was fully packed. It was like the first weekend, I think, after things opened up, and it was just incredible. People have all this pent up energy now to get out there. And speaking of energy, actually, ESG is hotter than ever. I mean, that is what's driving everything today. Here locally, the topic of ESG itself is just huge and growing, and everybody's trying to analyze where they are in the scope of things, and how they can do better. And certainly, the commercial property assessed clean energy financing, long words, but the short acronym CPACE certainly can, help with all of that. And Chris, in helping get some of those electrical projects and whatnot off the ground and to the finish line. We've seen a tremendous growth over this last quarter, just keep progressing and getting bigger and snowballing totally. And now, good problem to handle. We've got a lot of business, almost more than we can handle, which is awesome. And so putting in a few little longer hours and whatnot to make it work. But, customer service is first and foremost. And it's just good to see things really, really picking up. Lots of new construction, believe it or not, despite supply issues. These projects may take longer, of course, but certainly they're happening. And lots of great retrofit, and a lot of people, now that SRECs are back here in Illinois for solar projects, the incentives. But, of course, everything has an expiration. And so on a sliding scale basis, beginning this year, there are going to be less offerings as the years go on. But, to do a project this year and get things done, I can see where a lot of the uptick is coming from that as well. So all in all, positive scenario.
Love to hear it. And for those that don't know, ESG, environmental social governance, correct?
Yes.
Which, going with the trend of the generational shift that's undeniable, impact giving, impact living, profit, and impact all works together. Speaking of profit, impact, and all working together, I guess that leads quite well into Professor Darren Hayes. All things cyber, the interconnected world, the IoT of things. Welcome back from the UK. What's going on in your space? How are things at PACE and otherwise in the cyber world?
Yeah, things are really good personally, and I feel a little bit bad because everybody's been talking about spring and summer and lots of positive things, and I see a lot of things in the cyber world that are unfortunately
negative,
a little disturbing. Yeah. Well, let's start with the good. The good news is that a lot of these cyber conferences, digital forensic conferences, are back on track. They're in person. A lot of that is networking that's of value because you get to talk offline with people about what trends that they're seeing and that kind of thing. So that's really, really positive. The big, where I've become a lot more active recently over the past few months is in the area of risk and compliance because of new privacy legislation on a state level. There's a lot more interest in what's the difference between compliance versus cybersecurity? Are they the same? And they're actually very, very different. But how do you be compliant and become more robust in terms of cybersecurity? So lots of good things happening in that area, and that's keeping me very, very busy. The concern, now for the bad news, the concern is really what's going on with Ukraine and the types of cyber attacks that are happening right now. I don't know whether you've seen the news and in terms of many U.S. soldiers, veterans going over to Ukraine to support the fight against Russia, and the Russians have been using tactics to identify cell phone signals associated with these U.S. fighters to target them, which has been quite disturbing. The cyber attacks have been escalated on quite a number of facilities, including energy companies. We know the Russian capabilities. A number of years ago, there was the black energy malware, which one piece of code that took out power to over 700,000 Ukrainians. So there's always that threat. But what I'm hearing a lot about is government working with corporations to build up their defenses, and some of the rhetoric that's been coming out of Putin recently, and retribution and revenge for supporting Ukraine. They feel that this kind of they may be the target of increased attacks, cyber attacks. And so resiliency is a big topic right now in the cyber world, critical infrastructure, and government working with corporations to improve their security. The other threat as well that's been out there is related to ransomware, because when you have sanctions and you have the inability to use with the SWIFT banking system, and ransomware becomes increasingly important, and holding companies for ransom and getting cryptocurrency that you can easily exchange into dollars or whatever currency you want is a growing concern out there. So wish I had better news. I am happy about spring, by the way, and summer. So it's not all bad.
Well, right, and thoughts and prayers certainly out to the people fighting in Ukraine for everything all that is good, and just depending on what side and how you sit here. I think this brought me back to a very early episode with Saul, where it was, pay attention to what the regulators are doing. Pay attention to what government's doing. What they're doing today will affect you tomorrow. Well, tomorrow's here. These things have started to change. It's come up more and more. I was just at the ABC Awards Center membership dinner, and Darren, to your point, they were talking about this risk and compliance, and I never, for the life of me, would think that the guys on the ground pouring concrete would be talking about risk and compliance in a high def way, in a technology way. Computers, check. I was stunned. I went, good. Well, yes, very good. Let me see how we can talk more on this, because I'm unprepared, wildly unprepared. Darren's not here, but they were talking about it. So, to my friends at the WHO Foundation, if those of you that want to give, please do give WHO Foundation. What's going on in Ukraine is of the utmost importance, because it does affect us. Everything that happens there affects us here. Supply shortages, the ways, the global chip shortages, still a huge problem. Ask any manufacturer. They just don't have what they need to build. Hopefully, outside of COVID, which was huge, as we return to the new normal, there'll be a lot of lessons learned we can take from this, and resilience we can build, to your point again, Darren, in general. Speaking of that resilience, I know California is incredibly resilient, as is Chicago, as is Connecticut, as is New York, all of our respective areas. We've got these programs, we're doing these things, everything we can do to help. I am saddened that those vets going there are being treated the way they're treated, especially as fortunes of mercenaries, not as volunteers to help and aid and otherwise. But I don't want to go too deep there, because it's a sad topic, and one that I'm sure we're all familiar with. So again, thoughts and prayers to that area, to the regulatory area of the U.S. and how we can build back better. I think that's a political slogan, so don't tag me there. Saul, I always turn to you here. What's changing in California, or what's finally on the ground there as we come into 2022?
Yeah. So first, talk about paradigm shifts at the highest level. I think we're seeing land use policies, and it's important, right? So in these major land use policies, the way that we treated our real estate in the past, it's not going to be the same. Walkability is big, and we've got this housing shortage in the United States, about 7 million units short. And in California recently, a bill was passed to allow just about on every residential property the ability to build an accessory dwelling unit. And so now every single lot you can build another property on. And so we looked at affordability, major issue nationwide, major issue in California. And what's going to happen with affordability? Well, the land, you think about it, you got a piece of land, you build a building. As soon as you build a building, you start using it and it starts to depreciate. Not theoretical depreciation, but it starts to wear out. And so as that building wears out, nonetheless, the value goes up, right, overall. So that means the land value's increasing. And if we want to make housing more affordable, one of the things we have to do is allow more units to be built on the existing land. And that's exactly what's taken place in California. Now, it won't happen overnight. Everybody's not going to build a second unit on their property. It's going to take 50 years, right? 75 years before, and it's going to change neighborhoods. And walkability is a big issue. And here in San Diego, across the country, what we're seeing is for environmentally, for social justice, for all these things that everybody's interested in, we're seeing this change in land use policy and more density, higher density. In San Diego, we just the other day, some of it's crazy, is they want to eliminate driving. And maybe not eliminate it, but start to reduce it somewhat. So there's a lot of money spent around giving people bonuses, density bonuses, if they build apartment buildings around major transportation hubs. There's money been allocated for that. Kind of interesting here, the other day I saw in a major neighborhood in San Diego, the city came out overnight, changed the striping on the street, and didn't tell anybody. And so now what we've got in San Diego is kind of interesting. In a certain part of town, we've got a street. You think about this. You look at this two-way street, and now what it is first you have parking on each side. Then you have a bike lane next to the parking on each side. And instead of 2 lanes, you've got 1 lane, but it's two-way. And so imagine how that's, particularly people are texting on their phone. Imagine how that's going to play out. Now, when that happened, people woke up in the morning and they saw this, and it's on all the news, and people are talking about it. And the mayor in San Diego admitted that they didn't do a very good job talking about it, but he said it's being done in other places. You'll get used to it. And as I look at this, I think you got a big truck coming your way. We're going to pull into the bike lane, or you got to pull into one lane for two-way traffic, bike lanes, and then parking. And again, it's to drive people away from driving, to get more people to walk or use other means of transportation, public transportation. And then that leads to this idea of higher density and walkable neighborhoods where there doesn't have to be as much driving. In some cases, you might even see freeways start to disappear.
So literally applying red tape to my daily commute. I'm going to make it so difficult to get there.
Part of that is when your gasoline is going to be so expensive.
That too.
Which actually hurts the little guy more than the big guy, right? As those gasoline prices escalate, but it's going to force people into mass transit. And that's the idea, because if there's less driving, it's better for the environment. There's all these positives that who cares if it's going to be more red tape for you?
Well, I'm thinking more on the infrastructure cost of all the accidents and just policing those areas. I couldn't imagine. Well, and I haven't driven in London. Some of you may have. I couldn't do it. I know I couldn't do it. I've been to India and all these other places. I just, my mind works XYZ. I don't need it to go backwards. So that's got to be tough going from one way to two way in your space. But it does. We talked about it. Go ahead. Sorry, I was
going to say when I was in London. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say when I was in London, it was interesting because first of all, carbon emissions and becoming greener and more sustainable. It's not a party thing. It's not really a political thing. It's just kind of accepted. And in many European countries, it is. It's not right versus left or blue versus red or anything like that. The other thing that's interesting is that they actually create real incentives for people. So, if you have, first of all, they're cutting out all the diesel cars, which were a big thing over there. But also any car that runs on gasoline, you're going to have to pay £12 a day if you live in London, and then coming into London, you're going to have to pay a toll. However, if you buy an electric vehicle, you don't have to pay anything. And, I think it's a great idea that, if you create an incentive where people don't have to pay tolls, if they have an electric vehicle, that's a real incentive that people should think about.
Well, I mean, that's how CPACE was formed, right? Was getting people to pay attention.
Well, to pay attention to the basic tenets of it are to improve aging building stock, and that was the primary tenet.
That was the general good.
So let's take old buildings, let's improve them, make them more energy efficient, bring them into the 21st century and beyond, and that kind of thing. It's grown and developed into a lot of different other things as well. So while someone's doing a solar project, they can improve their EV charging infrastructure on their property. And Illinois probably, for as much as it lags behind sometimes, and we're Illinoisans, we can joke about it, but we are first in putting some legislation in regarding electrical vehicles and the promotion of programs, to promote its growth, and so yes, CPACE, does finance those kinds of things as well, and so it's an ever evolving area because it's all evolving around us, and so this it's a great discussion to have.
Well, and to me, so I think back on higher density conversations, and I come from a family of developers, and it's always a hard conversation to have with any municipality, any town, any zoning board. They don't want it. The neighbors don't want it. I don't want it in my way. I don't want to see that EV charging station. Let's not even go there. I don't want to see the 2-story, 4-story affordable apartment go up. And now it seems that although globally we all accept that we have to get to net zero carbon emissions because it's the right thing to do, you're not parking a Tesla in my driveway, so that's a wash for me at the moment. But even in the real estate side, specifically in the construction side, the CPACE program is part of the incentive. It's going to help get us there. But it's a little like affordable housing. There are rules there to push you over to get you in the right direction, but it's not quite so easy as, let's say, going back to Saul's earliest point in an earlier show of here's my car car wash. Pull in, pull out, pay me. It's easy. It's built, and it was approved by right. No barriers. There are hurdles to come.
Let me say something about that. So it's this NIMBYism, right? And so not only do you have zoning that limits people's rights and property, and so when our car wash was built, it was built zoned commercial, and you could build on it because it was zoned commercial. And now it doesn't matter almost what it's zoned. The neighbors can all get together and they can nix you. And so that you're right, there's these obstacles, but you got this other side growing now, and it's a YIMBY movement, right? Yes, in my backyard, where people realize that these things are going to take place. The government's pushing it. There's money to fund it, and it's going to keep moving in that direction. And we can't sustain the way we've developed real estate over the years, where you say, drive till you qualify, right? Keep pushing out, and you walk around any city, and you'll see that we can't take care of the garbage. The freeways are. They can't cut the weeds down. The police and fire protection, it's too expensive to reach out. And so you really need to start to bring it back in. And then there are all those other benefits as you start to bring it back in. And you talk to the millennials, you talk to certain groups of people generationally, they like this idea, right? So there are obstacles, but that'll probably change over time.
Well, and I wanted to jump in here because the adaptive reuse of mall properties has spurred so much more interest, especially as I see in the suburbs, where communities are starting to understand that they are not going to have a retail shopping mall. That mall has to be redeveloped or they're losing everything. And those are almost always adding multifamily components because that density piece is really highest and best use for the property. So what matters best for the property, I love that municipalities are starting to get it, because those conversations have been hard for so many years. And now because of they were losing tax base, and they're starting to say, okay. And there are two that I can think of specifically in my local area that it's really fun to watch what they're doing and to learn about it. And already equipping with electric vehicle charging stations. I went to a breakfast with a colleague last week where we left his car at the mall to charge. I don't have an electric vehicle, but he does. It was so easy. He literally we plugged it in, we went to breakfast, came out, his car was charged, he could do all of his traveling for the day. It's really useful once people start acclimating to building new experiences and new patterns and kind of revitalizing their own perspective of what that property is or has been historically.
So just like Zoom when the pandemic hit. Once they figured out it was useful, it was there to stay.
I remember several months ago, I mentioned how one of the consultants in our area, there's some affordable housing going up and, multifamily units going up. And one of the consultants for the construction company basically stepped in and I remember seeing the pictures and video of basically inviting the neighborhood out. Like, we're going to take a walk. We're going to walk. We're going to walk, and we're going to talk about this, and we're going to kind of address any issues you might have. And it kind of turned into, to Saul's point, kind of that YIMBY type movement where it's like, wait a second, it's happening one way or another. Let's address it right off the bat. But come to find out, recently and I think with the weather kind of turning around, you might see more of it. But I have seen a couple more of these type of situations, and one of them is surrounding one of the mall situations also, where they're kind of come on out, let's walk around, let's figure out what's going to go on, let's see what you're going to be paying for, let's see what, and kind of get everything out there, because it all kind of ties in. Also, a couple months ago, I remember we were talking about contractors in communities, just with everything going on with supply chain issues and all the issues going on. Anna Maria mentioned right at the jump, building's going to happen. It might take longer to get these projects going, but it seems that now it's kind of like, all right, we've gone through all of the back and forth to try to figure this out. We all know what we're facing. So I see a lot of the contractors, subs and GCs working together saying, we're going to get this done. It is going to take a little bit longer, but we're getting there, because I think they're just starting to see the movement. And same thing with the communities and the in the builders that are turning some of these malls and some of these places around. I also have a feeling that some of the mall stuff is also somewhat generational. Like, I think it would be pretty cool to, if I lived in the town near the mall I used to hang out with, to kind of see how that is, to Becca's point, see how that's going to transform in a place that, there's so many places we drive by, no matter where we live, that we go, that used to be that used to be that. My wife and I joke all the time, where we met, this, that, and the other thing, they're gone. They're gone. They've all been leveled and to see something get repurposed in your own community that you kind of might have grown up around or brought your kids to. It's something to be said about that. It's unique.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unique thing.
Well, and what I'm hearing is it's happening. And Placer.ai is a great tool for those who've never heard of it. What the data shows is not only is it happening, that people in general are shifting they have shifted post-pandemic. Their buying patterns, they're buying more, they're traveling further, they're buying certain things online. So to Saul and Becca's point, yeah, we've got to make some shifts here, because that's going to be, Chris, to your point, it's vacant space. Those tenants, that traffic, the health of that mall, and I'll speak to one locally here, and that was in default when the pandemic started. It's not getting better. Yes, people are in an urge to go out, but the actual health of the mall, the tenant mix has declined. So if we were to tear that down and take that 20 acres, because it's got a bit of land with it, because it was a mall in the middle of a residential area, and when they built it, they had to give plenty back, and turn it into a destination, a tourist attraction, something of that nature, a mixed-use development in the true nature, mixed-use village. How great would that be? Well, it would be great. Not sure we can, although I'm not sure we can afford it yet. Not sure the financials line up to buy it, because that mall owner still is doing very well. It's one of the best in the country, top 5. But we're getting there. And Saul, I mean, you talked 2 shows ago about rezoning or upzoning for your car wash. Are you considering making that change? Are you going to let the next
Yeah, great. That's a great question for me because on Adams Avenue, which is where our car wash is located, which is a walkable neighborhood, it was kind of a depressed part of town 40 years ago, but through revitalization efforts and through money from the federal government, block grant financing, it's really an up and coming area. And DeMillie's Pizza, about 4 blocks down from the car wash, and an adjacent property, about the size of our car wash property, was sold, and they're going to build 175 units on that piece of property. 175 units and 100 parking places.
It's 100 cars to wash.
Well, less cars, but still a lot more population. So we're holding out on the car wash property because maybe we can build 300 units. And we talk about highest and best use there's going to be some number, and you got to provide so much affordable housing, but there's going to be some number when we'll say, heck with the cash flow. I'm 73. Let's just go ahead and sell this thing and let them build however many, right down the street, 175 units and only 100 parking places.
Yeah. Well, here in Shelton, and I moved here a few months ago. Shelton is one of the top 10 places to live, for the simple fact that my mill rate is going to jump from 24 down to 17, and I'm already paying nothing in taxes because the corporate tax roll and the way in which this place was redeveloped, not developed originally, Shelton, Connecticut, for those, it's 06484, come see my neighborhood, is so well run, and everybody's building. We've got this Route 8 connector. We've got the infrastructure to get us there. We don't have the public transportation in some aspects, but everything else is there. They built over 1,000 apartments, all occupied because of this new community, because everybody came out of the cities. Now the supporting businesses are all thriving, redeveloping. Just the other day, they approved 38 acres for an industrial complex because so there's so much, to everyone's point, really. There's so many deals out there. From the brokerage side, I'm a very happy person. There are no complaints. We don't have to worry. The only supply shortage I have is inventory, and that's because Saul won't sell his car wash.
Yeah.
And then the labor side, because Chris's people won't come in and work because they don't have the people. Sounds like Darren, on the not to go back to a sad note, on the cybersecurity side, are things at pace? Are we seeing, with everything going on in the world, are more people going into the computer roles, the remote roles, that whole sector of education, and just abandoning the rest of us? Chris's labor unions, marketing, marketing is pretty much remote. No offense, Rebekah. Other areas, financial.
I would say that on the academic side, the students want to be together. They want to network. They want to get away from mom and dad and be with people their own age. So I think that remote learning isn't really an attractive option, especially for undergraduate students. Graduate students are a little bit more flexible. They don't mind online. I think that one of the trends that I have noticed is, so many different companies that are offering remote positions for people in cybersecurity. IBM has been doing it for years and years, but other companies have decided to tap into that very small market of really skilled labor. They have to go with what employees want, and that is working remotely, being able to, in theory, spend more time with their family. They're actually
balance.
Still spending just as much time working at home. They're just don't have to leave the house, but I see a lot more positions that a couple of years ago would not have been available as a remote position. And I would say that also probably travel. A lot of companies have cut back on travel, and it's not so much of a requirement anymore. So I would say that they're really the trends. But academic world, really, again, I would say the undergraduate population, they want to be together and in-person classes.
So the generational shift of more density, more together, more of this circled wagons mentality in real estate and construction, although lack of workforce in construction is also showing up in academia. More students in the computer sciences realm, less in the general business or, God forbid, accounting. Do we have any accountants on the call? And other areas. So the next generation is on their keyboard. Period. I mean, that's why Chris can't find any labor. Is because they're just not out there.
You know, and this remote thing also plays into the environment, right? So people don't have to drive to work and drive home. It fits that scenario as well.
Well, if the Tesla would drive me there and back, I'd have no problem with it. But it won't do that yet. It's coming. I've been told. And all while getting greener with the CPACE programs and others, as I understand it.
Can I ask a real estate question to you experts? I was watching something on the news the other day, and they were talking about, people who keep losing their bids on property because people with cash offers are coming in and getting the real estate they want every time, and some people even, get turned down 10 times because somebody comes in with a cash offer. And this trend, I think there's a company out there, maybe Homeward or something like that, that has been fronting the money for these people, and they take a small percentage, but it gives people the ability to make a cash offer and be on par with other people. Do you think that this is going to be the trend of the future for these buyers?
I'll start. We all will, I assumably, have a bunch to say here. One, a lot of these cash offers are significantly higher than Tom the Builder or so on can afford. These first-time home buyers, which has priced them out of the market to begin with. Commercial, residential, doesn't matter. You are now facing corporations looking for those stabilized returns with more buying power. So how do you combat that? Which leads us to a new, what sounds like, lending instrument, which I was first heard termed a soft loan, which, Anna Maria, you may know more about, which is a cash offer that isn't really cash. I'll give you the cash for 90 days so you can secure the property instead of putting 40% down. And now I turn it over to you guys, because sure, I'm seeing that people are bought out 10, 20 times over. Residentially, I lost 23 homes with significant down in a row. It's not like I had a lazy broker. There was no way there was any laziness involved. I was just purely being outbid, and then as COVID continued, the corporations, the people I was bidding against, I was unmatched. I ended up buying out of an estate. We love our new home; it's beautiful, and we saw it 7 minutes after it hit the market. We put it under contract an hour and 12 minutes from that. Wow. And we spent way more than we needed to, but go ahead. Let's go back.
Now, Darren, I think there are certain trends you tend to see in real estate that if you're old enough, like some of us, come back time and time again. I remember in the early 2000s when I bought the current house I'm living in, there was that same kind of atmosphere pre-recession. It just, you couldn't, a house couldn't be on the market for more than a day. It wouldn't even hit the market. As soon as the realtor found out about it, someone was scooping it up. And, and going for higher than asking price and getting cash offers. So there's always going to be that contingency of people, all right, maybe this is a slightly different trend with this service that you're talking about, funding that money. But like Andreas said, then there's always been that soft loan component around. So I think, it's just trends that come and go and come back again and leave. And that's what we see in real estate all the time.
Cyclical.
Yeah,
Cyclical, very. Yes.
You hit it, Andreas, is you've got hedge funds, Wall Street finally has seen the value. And so that's not going to change. These people are going to be there. They understand the value of real estate. They understand if you hold it long term, like the car wash, you hold it long term, it's going to be worth a lot more money. And they can't get a return like that anywhere else. So you're going to continue to see those kinds of offers coming in unless we build more. And so that's the key, is getting back to more supply. Because if we don't increase that supply, then the real estate remains a great investment for Wall Street. And that's where the money comes in, and they don't mind paying a little bit extra because their idea is you hold this property for a certain period of time. Now, are those people who are flippers? That's a different concept, right? But we've got people that are coming in, the whole intention. We even see tracts of homes being built to rent, right? So they're building them to rent them out. And so great investments. It's going to keep driving it. The answer, the key for the first-time home buyers is you got to build more property. You got to, and then that's back to this idea of more density, reduces the land cost overall. It's cleaner, all these positive things. And so people need to start looking at that. And you're right, Andreas, people are going to, they're going to fight that. Certain people are going to fight that, right? Because it's not in my backyard. I don't want to deal with it. But as more people become aware of the benefits of this, I think you'll start to see it. And it's generational, right? It'll change over time. And when we say we're going to increase density, it's not like it's going to happen overnight. And right now in California, I could build another unit in my backyard, but I'm not going to do it right now. I mean, it's going to take time for people to do it. It'll build itself out. And we see that in other neighborhoods in San Diego. I've been in real estate for almost 50 years now. And we've seen neighborhoods built out where they were once a single family neighborhood. They changed the zoning. Why? To increase the tax base, got federal money to come in, change the whole complexion of the neighborhood, the whole economic complexion of the neighborhood. And that's going to start happening, has to happen, because we need more supply.
Yeah. Now, look, the raw materials and labor shortages, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong here, JLL was quoting something like completion of projects 2023. Yeah, we said January 2022, but we can't bang the nails if we don't have them. So really, it's 2023. Saul, to your point, in a very specific way. Even if it gets approved and the changes are there, and we start fighting this today, we're not going to see it today. We're going to see it a year from now, 2 years from now. So, Darren, back to your question. It's not your realtor's fault, most likely, or your broker's fault, most likely, but you're facing some steep competition. And thanks for asking. And wow, we are actually all the way 8 minutes to the hour here. And as always, is the format I'd like to go around. What is the one biggest lesson each of us can give to our respective sector? From our respective sectors to the real estate professionals tuning in, what could they do this month? What should they focus on? And then most importantly, how do they reach each of you if they need your help? That's what we're here to do. We bring value every day. As a friend of mine says, by bringing that value, we grow our business. Jim Freed, a little shout out to Jim quickly here on the call. And as I said, Saul Klein, you're to my right on the Zoom thing. So I'll start with Saul.
Well, I would say look for the opportunity, avoid the dissent. So there's going to be a lot of dissent, but there's huge opportunities. So for people that list and sell and work with investors, look for the opportunity, because there are going to be opportunities, and it might not be politically acceptable for you, but if you're in the real estate business, you can look around, you can find the positive side of this. And I think that's the best thing I could say to people today is avoid the dissent and look for the opportunity. And
that's fair enough. And come get the car washed at such and such. Which, by the way, did that become a two-way street without you knowing, or is that?
No, not yet. But we'll take it, because then hopefully they'll give us if we increase density bonuses, mixed use. So I'm just waiting for the developer to come in and offer us enough money.
The make me move price? Is that
Make me move.
Or I shouldn't go that way. Let's not go back to that conversation. Rebekah, out of Chicago, marketing and real estate. What's the big lesson, the big takeaway this month as we get back to business? Besides attend your luncheon, biggest luncheon for years at ICSC, if I recall.
That's right. Attend the luncheon in Las Vegas during ICSC. But I think as people do this reentry period, being strategic about maintaining relationships that were developed during COVID, there are relationships that we had pre-COVID. Then there's been this expansion of networks during COVID, which actually kind of doubles the number of people and groups that we have to see now that we're in this post-COVID reality. So deciding strategically how to maintain what is most likely for many of us much bigger and broader networks is really crucial. So back to basics in CRM, relationship development, keeping track of people, making sure that you're reaching out to them regularly. Very much regular, old-fashioned brokerage basics are crucial. And in the frenzy of getting back out there, don't neglect your basics.
Love it. Don't neglect the basics. The 1 hour rule may no longer apply for those that know it in real estate. Drive for an hour. That's your market. It's bigger now. Data allows it to be much bigger, broader. And I was just in a huge networking event there with a bit of I mentioned it before the call. It was like roulette. They kept pairing me up with people for these one-on-one speed dating sessions. I've never done that, and it was actually it was quite beneficial. I met two people we're going to talk about doing business together. So I love that. Take what we've learned and the people we've met, the ways of doing it, kind of hold on to some of it. Chris, you're up next.
Yeah, so okay, just two quick things. One, again, this was probably months ago. We were talking. We were at the end of the show, and I mentioned about digging in and asking the right questions and finding the right builders. Especially during a time where they're struggling and they're trying to figure out exactly what their next moves are. Now is the time to be. If you're in that spot, you should be in that spot. To be patient with those contractors and with those builders, and then to kind of piggyback on what Becca was saying, I'm seeing that increase in network, and this is a little bit of a tilt, of the cap to Becca and her industry. Is I've always learned that you can if you invest in marketing and you're marketing things correctly, you can kind of control certain narratives and control certain ways of doing things. So if your network has increased, I found that which is what's going on in the association world. I'm making my visits, I'm getting out there, I'm doing the stuff that I need to do, but also I'm relying on, marketing to kind of carry some of our other members of the association, carry some of my other network along while I'm getting back to some of the basics, because you can only be you can only be so many places in a day to be doing, I want to go to lunch, I want to go. Everyone wants to do that now. So what I'm seeing is, correct marketing and keeping people up to speed on what it is you're trying to push out as a message. For instance, an event like Andreas, that he came out to I didn't invite all of those people by meeting them. We made sure that the marketing was correct. And then when I got there, now the follow-up is there. Now I can't sit there and say, hey, everybody, come see the photos. I can take the Flickr album and just splash it in front of all of them. And now they all are brought back into that same room again. And that creates enough energy up until the next event at the end of April. And it's this kind of juggling back and forth. And it gives me a whole new appreciation for the marketing game and things of that nature. Because if you get that right mix, it keeps moving your network forward with you, and less people are left behind. So
the new hybrid communication style, the tried and true sales touches, let's call them, for lack of a better word, of just 13 touches is a close. I've got to talk to you 13 times. Maybe I don't. And Becca, correct me if I'm wrong here. I just need to flash my Flickr, really bring up another one, Twitter or Instagram, something over to you 13 times. And I jest about Flickr. I knew about Flickr before the others. Great advice. Obviously, it reminds me of the tried and true realtor adage of don't forget to fill your pipeline. Right? No matter how many deals you have, you have to keep cold calling, prospecting, building that top of funnel pipeline, which many in the real estate industry forget. They get a few deals and they're busy working that core group, that core deal, and then those are closed deals. The opportunity's gone. Now they have nothing to do. It takes 3 months to ramp up. So don't miss out. What I'm hearing is don't miss out on that ramp up that we've now all built through COVID. Hopefully, all built through watching the show and otherwise. Anna Maria.
Well, as we're running out of time, just simply think green, because in thinking green, you can really acquire green. Uh,
I like that.
energy savings will amount to something and help you meet your ESG goals, which is the ultimate goal of all of this. And so think green going into spring.
Green will get you green with Inland Green Capital LLC.
Absolutely.
And Darren, my foremost and favorite forensic expert, all things cyber. What is the big takeaway here?
Yeah, I would just really say think about resilience. I mean, we're already seeing cyber attacks from Russia. We companies have to be more vigilant. Let's not think about cybersecurity as that annual training or that 6-month training where you tick the box when you've done that. It's not a compliance thing. We're moving into a very different arena right now with what's going on in Ukraine and with Russia. And companies are ramping up right now. They're working with government. So check out the CISA website, CISA, see what advice they're giving. Team up with competitors. So different industries have information sharing centers that share where they share their threats that are going on. So the financial services industry has one, healthcare has one, entertainment industry, because different industries are suffering from different types of threats right now. So I would say, think about partnering with people that you compete with in the real estate industry to see what threats that they're encountering right now. So be resilient, think about your defenses, know what the latest ransomware and malware is that we're being impacted by.
Almost stop thinking, and a company I spoke with earlier this year said it. They're like, well, no, that's legal's problem. No, it's not legal's problem. It's like going to the construction site. Everybody puts on a hard hat, whether you're the manager or the guy down, banging the nails. Everybody puts on a hard hat, and now more than ever with Ukraine, we all have to be paying more attention to our resilience, our networks, because our networks are our net worth, and I don't just mean the people we know, though you're wonderful people, our actual our data networks. And Mr. Mendoza, I assume you're there manning the controls. And to our audience, as we are here right on the hour, you can download our show anywhere you get your audio: Apple Podcasts, Alexa, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora. You can even ask Alexa, listen to the CRECo.ai Roundtable with Andreas Senie. Tune in every month, the first Thursday every month at 6, with my incredible hosts, some of the brightest minds I know, and certainly the most valuable people I consider in my network from the different sectors. And I hope you consider it part of yours. You can also tune in on YouTube for a host of great content. Just go to the YouTube channel CRECollaborative or visit the CRECo.ai website. Please do share, rate, review us, and Mr. Mendoza, do lead us out. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Roundtable powered by CRECo.ai. And those looking to give to the disaster in Ukraine, the World Health Organization Foundation has a great channel to do so safely, and it's a great way to do so. Mr. Mendoza, and to each of my co-hosts, thank you. Lead us out.
Yeah.